Okay, so today I'm going to show you how to make this lovely crocheted bed runner and a pair of crocheted cushions. And for the runner and the cushions I've used the traditional granny square pattern, which just uses one crochet stitch, which is called a treble crochet, and that's the UK term. So in the US that stitch is known as a double crochet. But throughout the tutorial I'll refer to the stitch as a treble crochet because that's what I'm used to. Okay, so when I say treble, if you're in the US, that means double, and I'm not sure about the terms in any other countries, whether Europe is the same as UK or as US, or I'm not too sure, so you might want to look that up if you haven't done crocheting before. Okay, so I've used a DMC thread, which is called Special Dentelles, and below I've put a link to a website called Claire's Lace, and that's where I buy all my supplies from, and she stocks all the cottons, and there's some lovely shades, and she also stocks all the hooks as well. Now for this project I used a 0.5mm hook, which is a number 22. But they do come in smaller sizes and in larger sizes as well. And I've got 4 here that are 0.4, 0.5, 0.75 and 1mm, which I think are all suitable for 12th scale crochet. So it's just what you feel comfortable with. If you're new to crochet, the smaller sizes might not be suitable for you, so you might want to start on a larger hook. And I've just actually done here a square on each of the hooks. So I'll just lay them out on my hand here. So this is the smallest hook, the 0.4, 0.5, 0.75 and then the 1mm. So you can see they're only very slightly, if I lay them on top of one another, they're very, very slightly larger. And you've got a bit of space there as well, so if you did do it slightly larger, that would still fit nicely at the end of the bed there. So it's up to you, or you might just want to have a practice first and then just done some spare wool or spare cotton and then start using the smaller hook to actually make the bed runner. Okay, so we're going to begin with our main colour, the blue. I'm going to start by making a chain of 6. So make a loop as though you're going to tie a knot, and insert the hook through the loop and just pull it onto the needle. Don't onto the hook. Don't pull it too tightly. And then bring the cotton up, and I just hook it between my 3rd and 4th finger, but however you're comfortable. And then hold on to the this tail of cotton, and I just take hold of the loop as well that's on the hook, and you want to take the hook behind the thread and just pull it through that first loop, and that makes 1 chain. So pull it through, that's 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Okay, that's the first chain of 6. So we're now going to join that into a ring by inserting the hook through the first chain that we made, or the end of this chain. Oops. And it is quite tricky to get started. And then hold on to that chain there between your fingertips. You've got 2 loops on the hook now, and we're going to pull the cotton through both loops. So I'll just do that again. So I just put the hook behind the cotton again and pull it through both loops. And then you just pull the tail, but not too tight because we need to get the hook through that centre of that ring. So hold on to the ring, and I'm going to make another chain, this time of 3. So behind the cotton, 1, 2 and 3, and that chain of 3 makes our first treble in this first cluster of 3 trebles. Okay, so we're now going to make the second treble. So this time we go behind the cotton, so I'm holding onto the ring, putting the hook behind the cotton and through the centre of the ring, and then just support that again with your fingertips. So on there I've got the original loop, there's the thread and then the ring, and I'm going to grab the thread and pull it just through the ring. Okay, so put the hook around the thread, through the ring, and you've now got 3 loops on the hook. So now I'm going to bring the thread through the top 2 loops and then through the remaining 2, and that is a treble crochet. So we've now got 2 on there out of our 3 in this first cluster. I'm going to repeat that. What I was doing there was just pulling that second treble close to that first chain that we made. Okay, so we now go behind the cotton, through the centre of the ring again, we pull the cotton through the ring, so we've got 3 loops on the hook, and we then pull the cotton through 2 loops, and the remaining 2 loops. Tighten that up, and there's the first cluster. So we're going to now make a corner space, and to do that we're going to do a chain of 2. So bring the cotton through the loop, so just go behind the cotton, 1 and 2, and then I'm holding again onto that ring, go behind the cotton, through the ring, and we make our first treble in our second cluster. So pull the cotton through the ring and then through the first 2 loops, and see I was guiding it there with my fingertip, because as you work the cotton and what you've made does twist round a bit, so just always be sort of guiding it through, keeping it straight, and through those final 2. And with these 2 fingers here I'm keeping this cotton quite tight, not too tight as it'll just get all tight and knotted, but just keep it nice and firm. So behind again to do our second treble, bring the cotton through the ring, through 2 loops and through the remaining 2, and then we do that one more time. Through 2 and the remaining 2. Now we've got our first 2 clusters. We now make our next corner space, so do a chain of 2 behind the cotton, through the ring, bring the cotton through, through the first 2 loops and through the remaining 2. Once you've mastered this treble crochet, this square does become quite easy because that's all it's made up of. And all the way through on each row we're just going to be doing 3 treble crochets per cluster, and on each row we'll be doing obviously 4 corner spaces, and as the rows increase there'll be more clusters in between, but we'll come to that. So another corner space here, so a chain of 2 through the centre ring, through 2 and through 2, we're on to our final cluster now. Final treble. And then for this final corner space, I don't do two, I just do one, and I find that that keeps it nice and tight and neater. So chain of one, and then you want to join with a slip stitch into the top of that first chain that we made. Remember when we joined our ring, we did a chain of 3, and we're now going to go into the top chain there and pull the cotton through both loops on the hook. So I'll just do that again. So we're going in front of the cotton, through that third chain, and pull cotton through both. And that corner there is still bigger than the others, but that's okay, because once we join in our next colour, that will be hidden. So just pull the thread out a bit so you've got a nice big loop there, and I'm holding onto the square and just snip away the cotton. And then I'm just going to knot that through that loop. So just pull the cotton through the loop, pull it tight, and then I just tighten it with my thumbnail like that. And there's our centre. So these tails of thread that we've got here, you can sew those into the back of the square, and that really is the right thing to do and the neatest option. But you also can just trim them off. And for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to snip those off. So don't go too close to where you've tied them. Leave a little bit of a tail, and we can always trim those off afterwards once we've stitched everything together. And there's our centre, our first centre. I hope you could see all of that really clearly. I've played around with the settings on my camera, and I think this is the best I can get it, so I hope that was clear, but hopefully as the square gets bigger you'll be able to see it better. Okay, so we're now going to join on our second thread, and I'm using this green, which matches the stripe in the bedspread that I've made. So insert the hook into one of the corner spaces, and then just wrap the thread around the hook and pull it through, and then you can just knot that. Pull it tight, and then push the hook back through. And again, put your thread between your fingers there, however you want to hold it. Keep it nice and firm. And we're going to put the hook around the cotton and pull the cotton through the space to make one loop there on the hook. Okay, we're then going to make 2 more chains, so around the thread and pull it through, that's 2, and pull it through. Sorry, we need to make another one there. So 3, we've done 3 chains there, so the first one to pull it through, and then we've made a chain of 3. And again, that makes our first treble crochet of this cluster. So I want to do another 2 trebles. So I'm putting the hook behind the thread, through the corner chain space, and I'm bringing the thread through the space. So I've got 3 loops now on the hook, and then I'm bringing the thread through 2, and then through the remaining 2. And that's our second cluster, our second treble, sorry. And then behind the thread, through the chain space, pull the thread through 2 loops, and then through the remaining 2. And then we want to make our corner chain space with our chain of 2. So 1 and 2. And behind the thread, through the chain space, pull the thread through, through the first 2 loops, through the remaining 2. Okay, 2 more trebles. Okay, so there's our first corner made up of 2 clusters of 3 trebles. Now in the traditional granny square pattern, you'd now do a chain and then go into the next corner chain space. But I don't do that chain because I find that it keeps it nice and tight and keeps the square smaller. But if you want to do that chain, you want a slightly larger square, and I mean very slightly larger, talking probably 1 millimetre, and you want the blanket to be quite loose, then do the chains, do a chain, and then go in. But I'm not going to, and I'm not going to do that all the way through. Okay, so I'm just going behind the thread and in to do our next treble. You can hear that creaking, it's my chair. Needs oiling, I think. 2 chain there to make the corner chain space, and then back in. So this second row just consists of the 4 corner clusters really. And that's the second corner done. So again, I'm not making a chain, I'm just going behind the thread and into the next corner. And then a chain of 2 for the corner chain space, and in there again. So 2 clusters of 3 treble per corner. The thread becoming twisted there as you work with it. Into that corner to do the final treble, and then I'm going into the final corner, and I'm just working in front of that tail of blue there. You can try and crochet these in. Just bring the cotton in front of it. The third treble there, nearly there now. Chain of 2 for the corner chain space. Again, I really hope this is clear for you. Okay. Second treble in the second cluster. And the third. Okay, and then again, no chain needed because that keeps it tight. Even if you have done a chain in between, I wouldn't advise doing one here because then that keeps it nice and tight. And you've still got enough room in there to insert the hook when we come to the next round. So just again through that third chain in that first chain of 3 we made after joining the cotton, and then bring the cotton through both loops on the hook. Again, just extend that loop, get rid of the hook, trim, and then just tie that off. Just pull that in with your nail, make it nice and tight, and then I'm going to trim those 2 off as well. Just snip those off, and there's our second round. So can you see how we're building up now? It's just the same all the way round, but we're just doing extra clusters. On this round we'll be doing a corner and then a cluster of 3 on each side. Okay, so back again, and we're going to join in our third colour. This time it's the white. And we're going to do exactly the same again. Okay, so put the hook through the corner and wrap the thread round, pull it through, and we're just going to just knot it on. Hook through, hold your thread, and then pull it through, and then we're going to make the chain of 3, and then behind the cotton and through. Through 2 and through the remaining 2. I'm just checking there that I'm actually in the shot. I noticed I moved out of shot a few times. So normally with my tutorials I'd sort of jump ahead, but I thought I'll just keep going on this because hopefully you're sort of crocheting along with me, and just by keep sort of repeating it like this you'll hopefully pick it up quite quickly. And if you enjoy this, let me know, because there's lots of other patterns you can do in crocheted squares. Another one of my favourites is a little flower square. And I'll do those as well if you like this tutorial. Okay, so now slightly different here because we've got that centre space, not chain space but just space, and we're going to do a cluster of 3 in there. So on the second round it was just corners, and this one we've got the corners and then a cluster of 3 on each side. So exactly the same thing again. I haven't done a chain. I'm just going into the next available space and doing the 3 trebles. Then back into the corner. I do my chain of 2. Once you've learned how to do this square, it's so much fun sort of choosing colour schemes, and I add them now to every project really. If I can fit in a crocheted throw, I do. Again, no chain, I'm just going directly into the corner. I'm just going to snip that tail off. That one's getting in my way. And then into the centre space. Hope you're getting on okay now. And then into that centre one now for my final cluster of 3. Okay, and then we're going to join that with a slip stitch again in that 3rd chain of that first chain of 3 we did. That through, make the loop, snip and tie off. We're building up nicely now. So I'll just snip that off, and then we'll add our final colour. Okay, so we're going to do our final round, and that's our blue again. So just joining it in there at the corner. Tying it in. Then hook through the corner. Pull the thread through, chain of 3, behind the cotton, and we start again on our trebles. Through 2, through 2, and again I'll go all the way around. Hopefully you're sort of following along with me. In these squares we're just doing 4 rounds or 4 rows, but obviously you can do as many as you like. Normally for a bed runner I just use these squares of 4 rounds, but if I was doing a throw for the back of a sofa or a couch, I would maybe do 5 rounds. I wouldn't go any bigger on that because they tend to look out of scale, but 5 rounds looks really pretty as well. And a really traditional looking granny square blanket is made up of all sorts of colours, and that's sort of where the pattern developed, or how it developed, when wool or yarn was quite scarce. People just used to make them with whatever they could find. They were all different colours and different textures, and I like doing them in all different colours with a black surround, so the final row in black, and it really makes the colours stand out. Like I say, it's really sort of traditional, so if you're doing a sort of, I don't know, vintage or maybe a retro scene, sort of mixed colour crocheted throw would really suit it. I crochet in real size as well. And I've got a large granny square blanket on the bed in a lovely deep red colour. They really do sort of set the room off, I think. I'm aware then that I've sped up a bit, so I'm sorry if I'm going a bit too fast for you, but I think you'll know the sort of pattern by now. Final corner. I don't know if you heard that or not, but that's a rather large pheasant we've got living in the garden. And he just goes around sort of clucking. We're nearly there now. I'm going to wind the cotton in front of that tail on that last round. Okay, and then I'm going to just cast that off. Again, by going into that third chain on that first chain of 3 we did. And then just tie that off, pull it tight and snip the ends. Okay, so that's our first square complete now. So there's just another 26 of those to go for this blanket. And once you've made all 26, you'll be an absolute expert at this pattern. And then I'll come back and I'll show you how I crochet them together. And then we'll do a final round of crochet around the outside. Okay, so once you've made all of your squares, and for this project we needed 27, which we're going to stitch together in 3 rows of 9. We want to sew them all together, so you can either sew them by using a back stitch or an over stitch, but I actually crochet them together and I find it's actually a little bit quicker. So put your squares together face to face or right side to right side, and then if you look along the edge there, I don't know if you can see that there, but along the edge of each square you've got like a double row of stitches. It sort of looks like a plait, and we want to go in the front one. So we want to put our hook through this front row of stitches. So start at the very corner and just put your hook through, and then put it through the same stitch on your other square, and again in the front sort of row of stitches. Okay, and then take your cotton and you just want to hook that through. Oops, I think I'm in the wrong one on that one. Yeah. Okay, so just pull the cotton through and then knot it. And you want to keep these lined up so that when you end up, you're in that corner on the other side. So you just want to go one stitch at a time and keeping that nice and square in your fingers. So go through the first 2 stitches, I need to come a bit higher up here, and then put the hook behind the cotton, pull it through, and then I just do a chain of 1 just so I've sort of got room to move. And then you want to go through the next 2, and then pull the cotton through, and then through 2. So you're through 2 stitches on the square, pull the cotton through, leaves you 2 hoops on the hook, and pull the cotton through both hoops. So through the stitches, pull the cotton through, and then through both loops on the hook. So I'll keep going all the way to the end, so hopefully you're again doing this with me. These blankets are quite time consuming, but I think for the sort of look that they add to a room, they really are worth it. Whenever I sort of show anybody a room where I've got one, they always remark on it. And just keep checking that you're still in line so that you'll end up in the corner on each, otherwise it will sort of throw the line out when the blanket's complete. I hope I'm still in shot here, yep. Okay, so we're practically at the end now, so I'm just in that corner of this front square, and then I'm just going to make sure that I'm in exactly the same stitch on that other square and in the front stitch. And then pull that through and through the 2 loops, and then again make the big loop, snip the cotton off, and again just tie that together, and then you can just trim off those odd bits of cotton. Now I try to be quite uniform when I'm stitching the squares together, so I'll do, because this is sort of 3 sets of 9 really, I do 2, 2 and 2, and I'll stitch those together, and then I'll stitch on a row of 3, and that makes our square of 9, and then I stitch those together. Okay, so when you're stitching the bigger sections together, just make sure that your lines run you know, parallel. Otherwise, when you look at the final blanket, the squares are just going to be slightly out, and it does ruin it. So just always make sure, so when you come to do these 2, start at your corners again, but just keep checking that these two centre joins are lined up, and then you'll keep it all square. So I'll just go away now and stitch all of this together, and then we'll come back and we'll do the final row of stitching around the edge, and then we will actually sew in the final sort of tail of cotton just to keep it all really neat. And that was the other thing I did on there. We leave our sort of tails fairly long at the back so they don't unravel as we're working, but then when you've stitched them all together they're less unlikely to ravel, so you can just go through and you can even just trim those even shorter. But do be really careful, because I've cut through a square before and it's very, very annoying when something takes this long to make. Okay, so I'll see you shortly. Okay, so I've crocheted all of the squares together into the 3 rows of 9, and I've trimmed off at the back all of the, missed one there, all of the tails as short as I can go. And then we're now going to do a row all around the outside, so just as we did with the squares, with the 2 clusters of 3 trebles at each corner, with a 2 chain space in between, and then a cluster of 3 in every other gap all the way around the outside. So it's just the same as a square, just there's a lot more clusters to do. So I'll just start it off here as we did before with the chain of 3 to make the first treble. The second treble in that corner. And then you're just going into the next hole as you would with the round on the square, and even when you get to these corners just treat that as a single cluster and you'll go into each one. So I'll just do the next one. Okay, so just keep going round until you've got back to the corner, and then I'll show you how we'll cast that off. Now I'm going to just jump ahead. Okay, so I've gone all the way round now. I'm just doing the last cluster here. And then just join that into that first chain of 3. Pull the loop out. And then leave a slightly longer tail this time. And tie that off. Pull it in tight, and then I'm going to thread that onto a sewing needle. And we're just going to stitch that into the back of the corner there. Make sure you can see that. And so just where the thread ends, I'm just going to sew it into a few of the back of the stitches up to the edge there. And then I'm just going to go along that edge as well. Just sort of going through every other sort of stitch there. Straighten that out, and then that can be snipped off, and so can the thread where we joined just there. A couple of long threads there. Okay, and there's our completed throw. That can now go onto the bed. And then I'll show you how to make a couple of matching cushions. Okay, so for the cushions we're using exactly the same technique. So the same clusters, and I haven't done any chains in between. And the only difference is this time we're just using the one colour, so there's no need to cast off between each round, and I'll show you how to do that next. And I've gone around 7 times, so whereas our square was 4, this is 7 rows, and that gives you a cushion of just over an inch once we've sort of stuffed it and stitched it. That's just over an inch square. So I'll just sort of show you, I've just sort of started off as we did before with our centre, and then join it into the top of that first chain of 3 that we did. Just get that tail out of the way. Okay, and then instead of pulling the loop there and casting off, you're just going to do another chain of 3, and then you're going to go into that corner and just continue. And then each time you get to the end of a row you'll be in a slightly different place, but just always go in the nearest space and just stick again with your corners and your clusters of 3 in between. And just do that until you've been round 7 times, and then you can cast off. So I just wanted to start that one there just to show you just how to continue there rather than joining in a new colour. So what we do now is just stitch these together. So once you've finished, just trim off the joining thread. We'll hide them anyway, so you don't have to go too short with them. And that one as well. And then, whereas you would normally put things right side to right side, this we're not turning inside out. So we're just going to do it wrong side to wrong side. Okay, so to stitch it together we're going to use the same technique as we did to join the squares. So start at the corner, and this time we're in this front row. So rather than going in that sort of back, like, you know, where you've got the sort of plait along there, we want to go in the front stitch. So join at the corner, and join in your thread again. Tie it on. And then we want all of these little threads to be inside and hidden. So just tuck that in. We'll tuck it in even more when we get round that side. And then just start again. So a chain of 1 to begin. Okay, so we pulled the cotton through, and then we did a chain of 1. And then you're just going in 1 stitch on this side. And 1 stitch on the other, and then just pull it through and then go through the 2 loops on the hook. Okay, so you want to do this all the way round on 3 sides. When you get to a corner, just keep going round. There's no need to cast on an extra stitch, and then you get a nice rounded corner. Okay, so when you reach the corner, just keep going round. You don't have to do, like I say, that extra stitch. And that then forms a nice sort of round corner there. Okay, so keep going round until you've done 3 sides. Okay, so when you've been around the 3 sides, just take the hook out, but don't snip the thread off. And then just open up the cushion and push these loose threads inside. That one there. And then we're just going to use this wad in here to fill the cushion, so just tear some off in small pieces. And then just push that inside. Use the other end of the hook to push that in until you think it sort of feels nicely filled. You don't want to overfill it. Put a little bit more in there. And push all those strands in. I think that's about right. And then just put your hook back in there and continue stitching to the end. Okay, so once you reach that end, you might just need to do a final stitch in that corner just to make the corner shaped nicely. Just trying to get into that final one in the corner there. Like that. And then again, pull out the thread and leave quite a long tail on that. You can tie that off. Cotton does become twisted as you're working with it. So just pull that through, and again pull it quite tight with your nail. And then we're going to thread that onto the sewing needle. And then where you've sort of got that bit that comes up there where we've cast off, try and go in just underneath that, so just directly underneath it, and go all the way through the cushion and find your way through the wadding and come out in one of the holes, one of the corner holes or the nearest hole. Pull it in so that both pieces go through. So we've got a nice neat corner there, and then pull it through so that you're sort of misshaping the cushion and snip that off, and that's just so that it won't poke out. And then you could just neaten up your cushion, you know, shape the wadding and make sure you're happy with the shape. And there's our completed cushion. Got a blue one there as well to match our throw.